Dark clouds rolled across the sky as if the heavens themselves were bracing for what was to come. Deep in the heart of the dense Varian jungle, jade-green foliage stretched endlessly in every direction, shrouding the secrets it had guarded for centuries. This was no place for the faint-hearted, but for Marin Vega, it was the only place she wanted to be. Marin adjusted the straps of her weather-worn pack and glanced at the ancient map in her hand. The faded ink trailed in jagged lines across the yellowed parchment, leading to a single name scrawled boldly at its center: Korith's crown. A mythical gemstone, said to be the largest and most radiant in existence, with legends claiming it gleamed so brightly it lit the very caves where it was hidden. No one had laid eyes on it for over 3 centuries. She'd spent years tracking down rumors, deciphering cryptic texts, and piecing together the truth of Korith's crown. The last lead had brought her here, to the brink of an adventure that could define her life, or end it. The jungle was alive with sound, chirping insects, the distant calls of birds, and the rustling of leaves. But Marin knew better than to let its vibrant exterior lull her into complacency. This place was a predator's paradise, and she was just another intruder. Hours later, the oppressive heat of the day gave way to the cool embrace of twilight, casting long shadows over the terrain. Marin noticed something unusual, a break in the dense canopy above her. As she drew closer, the trees opened to reveal a massive clearing dominated by an ancient, vine-covered stone entrance. The edges of its archway were engraved with symbols that matched those on her map. Her pulse quickened, the gateway to Korith's crown. Cautiously, she approached, pulling her machete free to slice through the clinging vines. As she cleared the way, a low growl rumbled from somewhere behind her. Marin froze, her breath catching in her throat. Slowly, she tilted her head to look over her shoulder. Golden eyes gleamed in the dim light, 2 of them locked directly onto her, a jaguar. The great cat prowled forward, its muscles rippling under its sleek coat. Marin tightened her grip on the machete, her mind racing. She had no intention of fighting a predator in its own habitat. She lowered herself into a crouch, making herself appear smaller, avoiding direct eye contact as she backed toward the archway. The jaguar hissed and crouched, its tail flicking in agitation. Heart thundering, Marin made her move. She tossed her flashlight to one side, the beam scattering light and drawing the cat's attention for a split second. It was all she needed. Turning on her heel, she dove through the ancient entrance. The jaguar's growl echoed behind her, but it did not follow. She glanced back to see the cat pacing at the edge of the clearing. It wouldn't come past the archway. Hours later, the oppressive heat of the day gave way to the cool embrace of twilight, casting long shadows over the terrain. Marin noticed something unusual, a break in the dense canopy above her. As she drew closer, the trees opened to reveal a massive clearing dominated by an ancient vine-covered stone entrance. The edges of its archway were engraved with symbols that matched those on her map. Her pulse quickened, the gateway to Korith's crown. Cautiously, she approached, pulling her machete free to slice through the clinging vines. As she cleared the way, a low growl rumbled from somewhere behind her. Marin froze, her breath catching in her throat. Slowly, she tilted her head to look over her shoulder. Breathing heavily, Marin flicked on her backup flashlight and turned to face what lay ahead. A steep, narrow staircase descended into darkness, the light from her beam revealing carvings on the stone walls, faces of ancient gods, symbols of protection, or perhaps warnings. She swallowed hard and began her descent. The air grew cooler and damp with each step. Eventually, the staircase opened into a vast cavern, its ceiling lost in shadow. A subterranean river ran through its center, and a narrow stone bridge arched over it. On the far side of the bridge stood an ornate pedestal carved from the same ancient stone, and atop it, something glimmered faintly, even in the faint light of her torch. Marin's legs felt heavy as she crossed the bridge. She knew better than to trust the lack of resistance. There were always traps in places like this. Her boots echoed against the stone as she neared the pedestal, her hand hovering over the magnificent gemstone. It was larger than she could have imagined, its multifaceted surface refracting the light into 1,000 colors. It was mesmerizing, too mesmerizing. The realization hit her too late. The floor beneath her shifted, and a series of grinding clicks filled the air. Instinctively, Marin ducked and rolled as a massive stone shot down from above, slamming onto the pedestal where she had just stood. The bridge cracked, pieces of it falling into the river below. Scrambling to her feet, she clutched the gemstone tightly and sprinted back up the staircase, her lungs burning with the effort as the cavern began to collapse behind her. By the time she burst out into the clearing, the jungle had turned silent. The jaguar was gone, and the soft hues of dawn broke through the trees, painting the world in gold and crimson. Marin sank to her knees, clutching Korith's crown to her chest. She had done it. She had found the legendary treasure. But this wasn't just about riches or fame. As Marin stared into the jungle, now teeming with the renewed life of morning, a profound truth settled over her. The challenge hadn't just been about finding Korith's crown, it had been about testing her resolve, her ingenuity, her courage. The jungle had sought to break her spirit, to strip her down to her very core, and she had come through stronger. Marin rose slowly, her lips curving into a small, triumphant smile. Perhaps the real treasure wasn't what she held in her hands after all, but what she had found within herself.